블라드님은 JPA와 하이버네이트 컨설팅을 정말로 많이 하시는 분들이고 실제로 기업들이 성능 문제에 부딪혔을 때 찾는 최고 전문가이신데요. 기업과 개발자들이 여전히 JPA와 하이버네이트 성능 문제를 겪고 있고 그거에 대해서 정말로 고민을 하고 계신지.
Will companies actually hire consultants anymore for these types of, in my case, it's performance tuning or optimizations? And I believe so, because I was not really expecting to get like contracts to with consulting, but actually I got even with over the past 2 years, even this years as well, and I realized that some questions, some projects are so complex that even for AI it's very difficult to get a grasp of what is being done there. Also, we have to understand that AI.
저는 이제 세 번째 질문으로 넘어갈 건데, 예전에는 블로그나 스택 오버플로우에 답변을 남기기도 하면서, 프로그래밍 공부도 하고, 이제 개발자들이 대부분 그런 방식으로도 공부를 좀 많이 했었습니다. 사람들과 만나서 질문도 나누고, 커뮤니티에서 서로 지식을 공유하고, 블로그를 통해서 본인의 지식을 정리하고, 그렇게 많이 했다면, AI가 오면서 사실은 사람에게 물어보지 않고, 커뮤니티 활동을 하지 않고, 그러지 않고 책이나 강의를 보지 않고도 AI에게 물어보면은 배울 수 있는데 라는 생각을 많이들 하고 계세요. 그러다 보니까 요즘 시대에 블라드님은 새로운 프로그래밍 언어나 기술을 배울 때 어떻게 학습을 하시나요? 그리고 그게 AI 시대가 오면서 학습 방법이 과거와 요즘이 좀 달라졌다고 보시나요?
That's very, very important actually, because we have AI, which is great, but it took us like a storm, because we haven't really adapted. And if someone comes and tells you, I know how to handle this, I don't think they do. I think we're still trying, and we should be honest about it. We are still beginners with AI, so we still have to figure out what's the best way to get the most out of it. Actually, last September, I started a PhD program after I graduated like 20 years ago. So now I started a PhD program. So I still have to learn a lot, actually. I still have to learn things, for instance, I didn't use before in my things that are related more to science, to academia. And so I will still have to learn, even if I have AI. Of course, I can go to AI to make it easy for me, but that's not the point. In the end, we have to be in charge, and we have to be able to determine whether AI is correct or not. Because AI is a probabilistic machine. It generates tokens based on a statistical model. It doesn't really have the same kind of reasoning that we humans are. So it's very important to know that. But as a tool, it's very useful, because and I've been using it like that. I tell it to give me resources, to make like a learning path, to create milestones for me, and then I ask question, tell AI to ask me questions so that I write the answer, and AI can validate whether I got that whether my answer is correct or not. So you can use AI as a training body for you to learn. You can also, when you if you don't understand something, you can try to tell AI to explain it to you, and even when it gives you an answer, always try to tell AI, how did you come up with this answer? Explain it in lots of details, and it helps you in two ways. First of all, by reading the summary, you will understand more and more, and you will understand where are the gaps in your knowledge, so that you can learn more about those. And it also helps AI to try to revise the answer, because it's a probabilistic machine. Sometimes it takes shortcuts and it just gives an answer, but maybe it's not the right answer. But when you give it the chain of thought, it has to go and analyze step by step, and then AI will also determine that, and usually it tells you, oh, you're right, I was wrong about that. And then it will regenerate the answer. So I think that now, if I have to learn something new, I will blend. So somehow I can use AI, but more as a tool. But in the end, I will still read papers, read books, and because I think for us as humans, we evolved in a way in which we cannot acquire knowledge very rapidly. You have to take the time to read. Usually when I try to learn something new, I read a book and I always write. So I read a page and then I write the ideas. And then I read another page and then I write the ideas. I cannot learn without writing. That's the way I am because, and I also I cannot learn very rapidly. I have to take my own time because otherwise I will go too fast and I'll forget a lot of what I've read. So in the end, I think for us as humans, that doesn't change. We're still very slow learners, but unlike AI, we keep on remembering things for tens of years. And AI doesn't it has a very huge short-term memory, like 1 million context window, but it doesn't really have like a long-term memory the way we have it. And I think for us, we should take that into consideration. And in the end, I think that you shouldn't discard the old ways. Saying that you shouldn't read books, that's not a good advice. I mean, we evolved for thousands of years in this way. AI cannot change that overnight.
와, 진짜 감동인데, 말씀하신 대로 결국은 이제 AI는 그 메모리에 담아두는 아무리 프롬프트에 토크를 많이 쓸 수 있다 하더라도 결국은 걔가 장기적으로 가져가는 기억은 없는 것이고 우리는 이제 프롬프트 안에서 던진 내용만을 가지고 이 AI가 추론하는 것을 가지고만 대화를 하고 있는 확률적 기계 머신에 가까운 것이고 장기 기억을 가지고 가는 것은 결국 우리이기 때문에 전통적인 교육 방법을 계속해서 유지를 해야 되고 그게 더 장기 기억을 오랫동안 유지할 수 있는 방법이라는 건데 뭐 농담이지만 그런 의미에서는 블라드님의 인프런 강의 같은 것들을 보는 게 여전히 뭐 요즘도 그렇고 앞으로의 시대에도 계속 중요하고 그 사람을 성장시킬 수 있는 좋은 방법이라고 얘기를 해주시는 것 같습니다. 네. 그러면 제가 이제 네 번째 질문을 드리려고 하는데, 저는 이제 최근에 블라드님이 그 제프레인의 주니 모델을 가지고 주크 쿼리를 작성하는 유튜브 영상을 봤었어요. 1년 전에 아마 올려주셨던 유튜브 영상인 것 같은데, SQL이든, 뭐, 쿼리 DSL이든, 주크든, JPA든, 요즘은 AI가 대부분의 코드를 작성하고 있는데, 주니어 개발자가 그럼에도 불구하고 여전히 깊게 공부해야 할 것들이 있다면 그게 무엇일까요? 자바를 더 깊게 공부해야 됩니다. 컴퓨터 사이언스의 근간이 되는 운영체제나 네트워크가 될 수도 있고요. 뭐 AI 관련된 컨텍스트 엔지니어링, 뭐 하네스 엔지니어링 같은 AI 관련된 걸 수도 있을 것 같은데 이제는 주니어 개발자들이 어떤 것들을 깊게 공부를 해야 될까요?
So yeah, that's very, very important because there are a lot of uh, every year we have a lot of people who join the industry. So it's good to give them the proper advice for them to jumpstart their careers. In fact, yesterday I was at the local conference in Cluj, and there were three junior developers who actually they wanted to get an internship. So they were very concerned about the future of AI. They are also studying computer science. And they told me,
음,
Can you give us some advices about how we can get a job now in this market, and also how to get an internship?" And then I answered to them, and I told them that it's of course important. You have AI. It's very tempting to use it and to avoid deep learning, as you said, but that's a mistake, because in the end the difference between a junior and a senior developer is the fact that the senior has more experience, has knowledge, and has a certain level of wisdom because he knows when to apply the knowledge. And you cannot get to that level without understanding how things work. So if you don't have the uh, if you don't have a solid foundation of knowledge, it's very hard to build on top, with or without AI. So it's still, people will ask, but why do I need to learn that? But it's for the same reasons we are learning a lot of things in school that at first it doesn't look like it's useful, but in the end you realize that it's actually very useful, and it can be geography, it can be history. It's very important to learn about all sorts of things in the end. And for computer science, yes, it's still very important to learn it. And for junior developers, not only that, but also try to stand out a little bit, because if you try to do the same thing like everyone, then you have a low probability of getting different results. So if you want to get, like, if you want to get that job, if you want to get that internship, try to also do things a little bit different. Like, try to write an art, create a portfolio, try to understand, and then try to explain to people so how it works, and try to create a YouTube video or to go to a conference or something. Try to have something that others don't have, because in the end it will make you stand out, and doing that you will also learn more. So that's the advice that I gave to these students, and I think it applies. And I also told them, so it looks like you don't have to learn all these things that we've learned, but it's still very important. So it just looks like you don't have to, but don't forget that it's still very important. You cannot you cannot build anything. You cannot become a professional without knowing the basics. It's impossible in the end.
아,
Every chef in the kitchen knows how to cut the vegetables in the end. He knows how to do everything in the kitchen. Even if he's a top level chef, you still have to know everything, all the foundation, because otherwise you won't never become a chef.
그러네요. 그러니까, 여전히 기본, 기초가 되는 지식은 굉장히 이제 중요하기도 하고, 그리고 저는 답변해 주신 거에서 두 번째 질문의 답변과도 조금 연결되는 게 있던 것 같았어요. 많은 사람들에게 본인을 노출시키고, 그 사람들이 사실 나를 찾고 질문하고 나에 대해서 많은 것들을 궁금해하고 그리고 나는 그 사람들에게 내가 배운 것을 전달하고 그것 자체가 사실은 내가 더 깊게 공부할 수 있는 방법 중에 가장 대표적인 사례라고 블라더님이 지금 앞에서도 지금도 답변을 해주신 것 같아가지고 더 많이 외부 활동도 하고 블로그도 하고 그렇게 주니어 분들에게 말씀을 좀 드려야 되겠네요. 다섯 번째 이제 질문으로 하려고 합니다. 요거는 조금 더 깊게 들어갈 건데요. 한국에서는 많은 IT 기업들이 AI 네이티브 기업으로 전환하려고 하면서 백엔드 개발자가 그 백엔드만 하는 것을 원하지 않고 백엔드 개발 외에 프론트엔드 개발도 좀 하고 뭐 앱 개발도 좀 하고 이래서 하나의 제품의 전체 과정을 AI를 통해서 해보기를 많은 회사의 리더분들이 좀 원하고 있습니다. 근데 그러다 보니까 전통적인 백엔드 엔지니어링을 좋아했던 분들은 나는 프론트엔드 개발이나 앱 개발을 원하지 않는데 이제 이걸 해야 되나? 라는 고민들도 많이 하고 있는데요. 요즘 같은 AI 시대에는 백엔드 개발자들의 경쟁력이 어디에서 나오는지 혹은 백엔드 개발자들도 이제는 프론트엔드나 뭐 다른 영역까지 하는 풀스택 개발자처럼 일을 해야지만 경쟁력이 생기는 것인지 그런 것들이 이제 블라드님은 어떻게 생각하시는지 궁금합니다.
So yeah, that's true actually, and the way that the industry is now shifting a little bit from the traditional way where we had back-end developers, front-end developers, because AI makes you more competent in areas where previously you are not very competent. And I can give you an example actually. A recent example, I'm also like a backend developer. I know databases, Hibernate, Spring. I also know web, but I don't know JavaScript as good as Hibernate. I don't know, and especially I don't know CSS. For me, CSS was always, I didn't understand anything. I don't, I, I don't know how to create a beautiful website, even if I want to. So I didn't even, I tried to learn it better, but in the end, I realized that it's not me. I actually did that. So I had a WordPress plugin creating ribbons, pop-ups, sticky widgets on my website. And I was paying that plugin to do that for me. And now I realize that, well, what if I tell Claude Code to do that for me. I mean, to generate, because I tried with Stack Overflow to create a sticky widget and it didn't work. I abandoned the idea. So I tell Claude, can you create this for me? Because I want to replace that plugin. And it did. And it's fantastic because me as a backend developer, now I can approach tasks about frontend, which are not very easy. So I can actually do them. Of course, I'm not as good as a really good front-end developer, but at least I can approach some things. So what it means, I don't think that we should see things in extremes. So it's rarely things are rarely in extreme. So things are never like true white, true black. They are always like gray in between. So I say that in the end you still need in a team because you're still going to need a team. You still need people who are more competent in backend, combined with people who are competent in front end, combined with people who are very keen on testing, combined with people who never lose track of the schedule and they always want to be on time and they are always reliable. So you need all sort of personalities in the end, even if you can. What's great about AI is that now if you have the front end person go into vacation, the other members of the team can still do some work. But in the end, when the front end developer comes, the front-end developer can validate the work because in the end expertise it still matters. And that's important because AI is just regression towards the mean in statistics. So AI, basically the output of AI just mimics the average across a huge knowledge base of humans, and the average is actually not very bad. When you say, oh, you're just average, that's a compliment. Being average, that's not really bad. It's actually you can be a professional developer just being average. But in the end, if you're average front end, like in my case, I could use AI for being like an average front end and combine with my skills on back end. I provide much better value for a company, and the same way a front-end developer can now do like SQL query analysis, and a front-end developer can now tell why an SQL query is slow because it just asks AI, and AI will optimize and explain why it's slow. So I think there's a lot of value. It's a learning opportunity because I can ask AI, how does it work? Why does it work? Because I don't understand, and it will explain why it works. And oh yeah, it was. I didn't know that exists, so I didn't know what it means. So I think in the end, based on the question that you said, I think it's a great opportunity, but I don't see that we are going to become like only like full stack developers, and you don't really want to have like a team with people that are they know a little bit about everything because if they know a little bit about everything, they are just like AI. I mean, and it's very hard for them to really tell for sure if something is really correct or it's a hallucination. So you still need some experts. So I would combine people, but then it's true that we can do things that previously it was much more difficult for us to do. At least for me with front end.
맞습니다. 그러니까요. 저가 생각하기에도 여전히 전문가들의 힘은 필요하고 오히려 전문가가 아닌 분들이 AI로 대체되는 것 같고 그 전문가들은 본인의 일을 계속 전문적으로 더 잘하고 전문가가 아닌 영역에 한해서는 AI 도움을 통해서 딱 평균 수준의 어떤 작업물을 좀 하되 그 평균 정도의 수준의 작업물을 그 이상으로 만들어내는 것들을 전문가들이 계속 하는 거고 나머지 작업자들이 어떻게 보면 내가 전문적이지 않은 것들을 일단은 당장은 해내는 정도의 어떤 것이 앞으로의 어떤 일하는 방식이 될 수도 있겠다라는 좀 생각이 듭니다. 네, 그러네요. 저희 팀의 백엔드 개발자분들한테도 열심히 계속 공부하라고 말씀드려야 될 것 같아요. 자, 그러면 이제 6번째 질문으로 갈 건데요. 이제는 좀 그 기술적인 내용들로 좀 가려고 합니다. 뭐, 보시는 분들이 다 아시겠지만, 블라드님은 JPA와 하이버네이트 컨설팅을 정말로 많이 하시는 분들이고, 실제로 기업들이 성능 문제에 부딪혔을 때 찾는 최고 전문가이신데요. 이게 사실 많은 분들이 궁금해 하시는 건데, AI가 어느 정도 그 답변을 충분히 해주고 문제 상황을 명확히 전달하면 코드도 짜주고 문제점에 대한 리뷰도 해줄 수 있는 상황에서 기업과 개발자들이 여전히 JPA와 하이버넷 성능 문제를 겪고 있고 그거에 대해서 정말로 고민을 하고 계신지 어디에서 요즘 같은 시대에도 왜 그들은 여전히 문제점을 겪고 있는 건지 아니면 반대로 이제는 더 이상 그런 쪽 문제는 없고 또 다른 AI 시대에 맞는 또 다른 문제를 겪고 있는 건지 어떤 식의 요즘은 문의가 많은지 궁금합니다.
That's actually a very it's a great question because it really really applies, and I had a very different uh, perspective on this at first, because when I saw what AI can do, like Opus, Cloud Code Opus, I was really scared. I mean, this tool is really great. Actually, people will never come to me again. But then I realized that. Well, yeah, it's again we come back to the regression towards the mean. It can scan a large code base where
음,
some training data is correct, what training data is not really correct. And I also thought about, will companies actually hire consultants anymore for these types of, in my case, it's performance tuning or optimizations? And I believe so, because I was not really expecting to get like contracts to with consulting, but actually I got even with over the past 2 years, even this years as well, and I realized that some questions, some projects are so complex that even for AI, it's very difficult to get a grasp of what is being done there. Also, we have to understand that AI uses the foundational model data, but it also scans your code base as well. And if you keep on making all sorts of mistakes there, it will just take it for granted, believing that, oh yeah, that's the right thing to do
음,
here. So in the end, you still need someone to be able to determine also whether the code that you wrote without AI is correct, whether what AI suggests you is correct. And I'm going to give you an example. There are companies like banks where you are better off paying someone to give you the right advice than to try to um, I don't know, save a little bit of money and in the
음,
end risk a bug that will end up uh, you end up losing hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars. In some businesses, risk is very palatable, and it's for a business is very very tricky. And it's not just the money; it's the trust. If you do like a terrible mistake, and or even for performance or even worse security related, you lose the trust of the clients, then you can really go out of business. So I don't believe that for people who are have an expertise in a certain area, they will lose their contracts. I think on the contrary, because more people will try to, as we go back to the previous question, more people will try to approach backend related things, knowing, believing that they do the right thing, but not knowing for sure that they're doing the right thing, and you risk of not doing the right thing, and then you have to, you'll have to consult with an expert to ask, is this really correct? I mean, what are we doing here? Is this we don't
음,
really know. AI, but who wrote this? AI. AI told us to do it. So in the end, I think that I was surprised as well, because I still got some consulting contracts, although my business was not really focused so much on consulting. I think that I was more focused on to training more than consulting, because and I can give you an explanation why. Because actually, training has a much higher return on investment than consulting. That's the reason why. But I do both actually. Um, and I think that I also thought of it, and I don't think it's going anywhere. This expert consulting. Also, if I have question about areas where I don't understand, I also go. Sometimes I use AI, but in the end, I always go to a person and ask the person to get like a really
음.
good answer from a human being who studied a certain field for 20 years. You cannot. You cannot beat that.
여전히 많군요. 여전히 블라드님에게 도움을 요청하는 기업들이 정말 많군요. 어떻게 보면 AI 시대에도 말씀해 주셨던 것처럼 20년 이상의 그 분야를 공부했던 사람에게 우리의 문제를 해결을 요청하는 것이 가장 경제적이고 가장 확실한 방법이라는 것은 AI 시대에도 변함이 없는 거네요. 좋습니다. 희망이 뭔가 한국에 있는 백엔드 개발자분들에게도 희망의 메시지가 되는 것 같습니다. AI가 해결해주지 못하는 분야가 너무 많고 여전히 많은 기업들이 글로벌하게도 문제를 겪는다는 거니까요. 자, 그러면 그 한국에 관련된 질문들을 조금 더 드리겠습니다.